Okay, I call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of November 2nd, 2022 at 6:01 p.m. Members present are Aho, Chandy, Vivo, Tony, Wuch, and Manville, alternate Manville, who is seated for absent members. We have minutes from October 17th to consider.
I move that the minutes be accepted as presented.
Moved by
Second.
Candy, second by DeVivo. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, minutes are passed. We have a public hearing regarding accessory dwelling units and parking opt-out.
You called the Inland Wetlands Agency Committee meeting to order, correct?
No, he called to order P and Z, but it should be wetlands, I think.
Yeah,
Sorry
sorry.
about that. But so is the whole thing wetlands?
No, it's first an Inland Wetlands.
Oh, we have
meeting.
two different ones. Okay, I
Yes,
didn't print out the wetlands one.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
oh, you have to help me with, I've got the agenda for the PZC, but I don't have the agenda for wetlands.
Yeah,
Okay.
it says PZC 6 p.m.
Okay,
Say it again.
The agenda says Planning and Zoning Commission 6 p.m.
but
Yeah,
that, but we have two different, do we have two different meetings tonight or just one?
Yes, you have two different meetings.
Okay, so I'm missing the agenda. I guess I didn't print it out.
Okay, if you just want to, let me pull that up. I
Okay.
thought I had it up.
Why don't you pull that up and I'll start over again.
I have it, Jen. You want me to just share it?
Yes, yeah, that'd be great. I have it up now, but that would be great.
Okay, so let's start this over again. I call to order the Inland Wetlands Agency meeting of November 2nd at 6:03 p.m. Members present are Aho, Chandy, DeVivo, Tony, Wuch, and alternate Manville, who's seated for absent members. So we have minutes from the same date, as it turns out, October 17th, minutes from October 17th, IWA minutes.
I move that the minutes be accepted as presented.
Okay, moved by Chandy,
I second that.
second by DeVivo. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Okay, so now we also have a public hearing. The same
it's a-
public here, it's a public hearing on the same subject?
It's a continuation of the public hearing. I could just read, it's a continuation of a public hearing for W1626 application of J. Dewey BL Companies / Rui Development LLC for an inland wetlands license for a mixed-use development on two parcels owned by Yame Development LLC located at 1659 Storage Road and 625 Middle Turnpike. Assessors parcels IDs 8.15.2 and 8.15.11.
So what we're
Um,
doing is we're just continuing that, right?
Yeah,
But-
you're
But we
opening,
need to open the meeting. and-
yeah, open it and then continue it. Yep.
Okay, so I open the public hearing at 6:05 p.m. Members present are Aho, Chandy, DeVivo, Tony, and Manville.
The applicants have requested a continuance of, or that we continue this public hearing. They are still working through some of the details and they have granted the agency an extension, and that's included in your packet.
Okay, would someone like to? Do we need to? Okay, we can make the motion and then close the hearing, right? In that order? Or
Yes,
do we have to close the hearing and then make the motion?
I think you close the hearing. I think close
Okay.
the hearing.
Okay.
Sorry.
We'll get this right eventually.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Okay, if no one sees any reason to keep this public hearing open, I would entertain a motion to
You're,
close.
actually, sorry, you're just continuing this. So you're going to move to continue this public
Oh,
hearing.
that's right. We can't close it because we're
Do
continuing.
not
it.
close the public hearing.
So all we need is a motion to continue.
Yeah, and that's before you right now on the
I
slide.
can put it forward.
Moved by Chandy.
Do I need to read it first?
Oh,
Yes.
that's right.
Yeah. I move to continue the public hearing of the application of J. Dewey BL Companies, Ruhi Development LLC for an inland wetland license for a mixed-use development on 2 parcels owned by Yame Development LLC located at 1659 Stores Road and 625 Middle Turnpike, assessors parcel IDs 8.15.2 and 8.15.11 to a special meeting on December 5th, 2022 at 6 p.m. via virtual meeting.
Okay, moved by Chandy,
Second,
second by
by
DeVivo.
DeVivo.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, so that public hearing is continued, not closed, but continued. What else did we have on the agenda for IWA?
The next item is, I'll share my screen in just one sec, to a different screen. The next item of business is appointment of inland wetlands agents. So I have a staff memo in your packet.
That's the temporary ones, right?
Correct, and that's Tyke, would be Mike D'Amato and Robin Newton, who you've met before, or those of you, I believe they've come to a full commission meeting, but they they do wetlands, they act as inland wetlands agents throughout the state, and they've completed the deep training, so they are able to issue agent approvals. So we are looking to put the ad out for my former position out on the street very soon, but until that time, we really do need to get some temporary help in here.
Okay, so do you have a motion for that?
I do have a motion. I'm gonna share the other screen. Share. There we go.
I
Okay.
can do that.
Okay, thank you.
I, John DeVivo, move to appoint Michael D'Amato and Robin Newton as a duly authorized inland wetlands agents effective November 3rd, 2022.
Moved by DeVivo.
Which one second?
Okay, which second? All in favor? Okay, passes unanimously. I believe that's it for inland wetlands, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now we can start PZC. I call to order the November 2nd meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission at 6:09 p.m. Members present are Aho, Chandy, DeVivo, Frattoni, Wooch, and Manville. And we have minutes from October 17th of the PZC.
Just tell them to open Zoom and put in those.
I move that the minutes be accepted as presented.
Okay, moved by Chandy,
Second,
second
DeVivo.
by DeVivo. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, now we passed those minutes twice. They should be well passed. Okay, now we open a public hearing, which will actually be a public hearing, not a continuation. Okay. So I open the public hearing to consider the accessory dwelling unit and parking opt-out at 6:10 p.m. with members present, Aho, Chandy, DeVivo, Frattoni, Wooch, and Manville. And we do need to read the notices, right? Public notices and boilerplate. You do that for me, Jennifer?
You want me to read the notice or do you want to,
Please.
Jelena?
I'm
can-
trying to, so Sandy's, we're trying to troubleshoot for somebody who's trying to,
I'll read the legal
get on.
notice because I have it right up. Okay.
okay.
The Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold the following public hearing on Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022 via web-based virtual meeting to hear public comments on the following regarding the following. 610, action on PA Act 2129, opt-out of accessory apartments and parking requirements. No information from the public shall be received after the close of the public hearing. Additional information regarding this application is available in the planning office. P. Aho Chair, Luann Cooley, Secretary. I also did want to note for the record that you received some correspondence. We received this via email today from Sheila Amder. It's a letter, it's a memo actually to the Planning and Zoning Commission from Sheila Amder dated November 2nd, 2022. And that is included in your packet and should be entered into the record.
So just in addition to that, we also got an email at 5:57 on the same subject. So I can read it now, or I can read it after the presentation, whichever you guys would prefer.
Why don't you read it after the presentation?
Okay, just remind me.
Yeah, okay. Do we need to do any other readings?
Yeah, so we probably need to read the script, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do that if you.
Or turn the, have you got a recording of it? Make a recording.
Yeah. I can go ahead and read that, Jillian, if you'd like.
Okay.
Jillian's. So let's see. Public comment, it will be provided during the public comment portion of the hearing, either through, I'm sorry. Public comment may also be provided can be provided by computer or telephone. If you'd like to join by telephone, please use the following steps. Dial 1-929-205-6099 and enter the passcode 865-4361-8735 followed by the pound sign. If the meeting has not already started, please press pound to wait. If you have already joined this meeting on a computer or mobile device, you'll be prompted to enter your unique participant ID. If you are only joining by telephone, press pound to skip. Let's see. So if you need assistance accessing the Zoom meeting, please refer to the Zoom frequently asked questions or call 860-429-3330. If you're participating in the virtual meeting, we respectfully request that you abide by the following meeting protocols established to facilitate an orderly meeting. Please make sure you are in a quiet space to reduce background noise interference. Upon joining the meeting, you'll be asked to identify yourself by name and identify whether you'll be speaking in support, opposition, or requesting additional information regarding the application. After you have provided that information, those joining via computer, tablet, or smartphone should turn their camera off and mute their microphone until called upon by the chair to provide comment. People who call into the meeting will be muted by the organizer until called upon by the chair. Once the chair calls on you, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera and begin your comments by stating your name. When you've completed your comments to the commission, they have asked any questions of you, you'll be dismissed from the virtual meeting and you'll be able to continue to view the meeting using live stream instructions above or on channel 191. If anyone is disruptive to the meeting, the commission reserves the right to dismiss that individual from the virtual meeting and or continue the hearing to another date. And that's all I have for that.
Okay, so first order of business would be the those in favor, and I guess that would be Jennifer, right?
Well, I think we're
Play the role.
gonna
You're gonna play the role.
staff is gonna do a short presentation.
Right.
And I'm gonna hand that over to Jillian.
Okay.
And Jillian, great.
All right, so can everybody see that? Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so tonight we're going to talk about Public Act 2129, which was a law passed to design to address many land use issues, but tonight we're going to be talking about the accessory dwelling units and parking. To opt out, if you decide that that's the way you want to go, we have to follow a two-step process. We need a 2/3 vote tonight from this commission, and then we're going to go to the council, I believe, on November 14th, and it will require a 2/3 vote of the council as well. If we don't opt out, we have to abide by those rules as of 1/1/23. And while there is this deadline on the ADUs, there's no deadline on parking, but we did figure we'd do it all together. So, you know, our regulations define ADUs as a dwelling unit that is associated with an incident and incidental to a single family dwelling on the same lot that serves as the lot's principal use. So that's our definition. Lots of ways to have an accessory dwelling unit currently in our regulations. It can be detached, attached, it can be an upper level, lower level, can be above a garage, can be in the garage. So lots of ways we allow it. So these next slides are just the actual text of the Public Act. I'm not going to read it, but I thought I put it in here in case we need to refer back to it. So as you guys remember, in 2020, this commission made some significant changes to our regulations to allow our residents a little bit easier time to get an accessory dwelling unit. So some of those changes, we changed the name from efficiency to accessory dwelling unit. We allowed it by zoning permit approval rather than special permit, so no public hearing required anymore. No more minimum lot area. We made them slightly bigger. We went from 35 to 50%. We allowed them in detached structures, which is something we hadn't done before. We talked about door placement. And then we talked about the maximum number of people allowed. And we did the deed restriction. That's a requirement. We also changed the owner certification from 2 to 5 years. So those are some of the things that we did to make it a lot easier for people. Since those changes, I've done 7. One is currently under construction, and I have 2 permits pending. So the highlighted areas on this slide just show the differences between what we currently allow and what the Public Act is requiring. So a couple of things to note. You know, they don't want you to have any architecture differences between the unit and a single family. We require that you can't add a door to the front of the building. We require 3 off-street parking spaces. The Public Act calls for 1. Residency, there's no provisions in the Public Act, but we do require this deed restriction. And then occupancy, they say no limit. We say 2 adult persons and children under the age of 18. And then we limit it not to exceed 1 occupant per 100 square feet of combined living and dining space. So here are the potential things that can happen. So we can opt out and keep our regulations as they are. We can opt out and the Regulatory Review Committee can start to look at other ways to make ADUs easier to support affordable housing, or we can do nothing and comply with the Public Act. So this is the text on parking from the Public Act. Essentially, they call for what we call for, oh, sorry, I'm getting myself confused here. We require 2 parking spaces for each dwelling unit, regardless of how many bedrooms. And the Public Act is 1 parking space for each studio or 1 bedroom, or more than 2 parking spaces for each dwelling unit. So same potential actions on the parking. We can opt out and do nothing. We can opt out and take a look at the regs. Or we can not opt out and comply with the Public Act. So that's basically the presentation. If anybody has any questions.
Albino,
Yeah, so what are the advantages of opting out if we have option 2, that is, do not opt out and revise regulations to comply? Is it we cannot, if we don't like something about Public Act 21-29, then we cannot revise our regulations? If it's, all our regulations has to be consistent with 21-29.
Right, if we don't opt out, then the Public Act is what we have to follow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what, can you point out what in Public Act 21-29 is something that we may not as a community like, or is not consistent with the way we have framed our regulations?
So I think, sorry, I have to shut my door. Somebody's running.
Mhm.
So, I think parking is a big one.
Mhm.
And I think the deed restriction is another big one.
Can you repeat that deed restriction clause?
So currently, we require the owner of the property to file a deed restriction on the land records that says that they will live, 6 months essentially, in one or the other unit.
Mhm.
So owner occupancy is required, and they have to recertify that owner occupancy every 5 years with us.
Mhm.
Without that, any single family dwelling could be turned into a single family dwelling with an accessory unit. Even, any rental properties.
So essentially, we did this deed restrictions so people don't buy up our houses and use it as rental opportunities. And we felt that the deed restriction was important because the character of our neighborhoods were changing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would also add that I think the deed restriction, I think one of the goals, as I remember it, to making ADUs easier to get just by zoning permit was to promote affordability. And I'm not sure that would happen if both sides of a house were able to be rented because of the way the rental market works in Mansfield. Basically we're able to rent, landlords are able to rent by the bed. And so we have high rents here. So
Even though it's even though it's a, efficiency unit, or what's the new name? Yeah, accessory dwelling unit, even though it's that, the rental market is still good.
yes, I would argue that, I would say that, yes.
I think the important part of opting out is that we may agree with some of the things that the state has proposed, but we prefer to write our own rules.
Yeah,
And by opting out, we can decide what we like, and
yeah,
we may even
gives us
decide-
flexibility.
It
Gives us
flexibility.
flexibility and introduce things that we like and new things that we don't like.
Right.
The parking, yeah, if 2 is not needed, I don't know what the advantages of requiring the 2. So some things that we like from PA 21-29 we can adopt.
We might want to change the parking to 1, but I
Yeah.
think we should decide that amongst ourselves.
Yeah. Is there anything else other than the parking and the deed restriction?
Well, there's the occupancy. I mean, we say 2 adult people and children under the age of 18, and then we limit it by square footage. The Public Act has no maximum occupancy.
That also, I think, we were trying to avoid the way the rental market was working for student housing. So we were trying to make it more like families using the accessory dwelling units. Yeah.
Right, and I mean, we still have our single family dwelling subject to occupancy of the definition of family, right? Lots and lots of ways you can meet that definition of family. But there is a limit and the Public Act has none.
I think there are also a few other nuances like the exterior door, other things like that, you know, I think we discussed the maximum occupancy, and then our regulations state that ADUs are enabled only in the residential zones and then in store center, but PA 2129 allows ADUs on any single family lot within any zone. So little nuances that I think the PZC is probably want to take a look at some point. And you'll have that opportunity because we are going to be updating these regulations. We're moving forward. So
Yeah. Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
Paula, when I read our minutes and stuff, I was against, I would actually like to opt out and let us choose, because I think our PZC, we've worked very hard over the summer, over the last 2 years to really address this issue. And I understand that the state wants a certain thing, but we've already addressed, we're working on it. We have a framework, we have our review, and we have been going over this. It seems, I mean, I would rather see us make the decision for Mansfield rather than someone in Hartford. So I don't mind following a few of their things, but I'm kind of, why are they telling us to do this whole thing? So, I mean, like the front door, that was a big thing. We spoke about that for probably a half an hour, and there were different views on it. And I remember sitting there saying, gosh, I'd never even thought of that. But so we made a choice back. So that's where I'm standing on this issue.
So I should probably read that email before we close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. So this came at 5:57 on Wednesday, November 2nd. Dear Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission, my name is Marcus Palumbo, and I'm writing to express my opposition to opting out of the accessory dwelling unit and minimum parking requirement sections of Public Act 2129. I grew up in this town and spent 19 years of my life living here, and Mansfield obviously has a lot to offer. However, there are still many ways Public Act 2129 would improve our life in our town. One of these improvements would be the legalization of accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. These types of homes offer a naturally affordable option given their smaller size and provide a way to add more housing stock to our town without cutting down more trees to create further sprawl. ADUs also offer an alternative to large single-family homes, which is important for young people like me, for whom a single-family home isn't affordable or necessary, as well as for senior citizens looking to downsize. Additionally, Public Act 2129's provisions regarding parking minimums would benefit the affordability of housing in our town. It should not be required for every small studio apartment to have multiple parking spaces because not everyone uses a car. Parking is also expensive to build, so forcing developers to build lots of it requires that they take on additional costs, which are passed down to the buyers' renters. This makes housing more expensive. These provisions are important steps in making our town more accessible and affordable. It is for this reason that I urge the committee to adopt the provisions of Public Act 2129 instead of rejecting and opting out of them. Thank you, Marcus Palumbo.
He may be confused that we're not saying we don't want accessory dwellings. No. But the parking is certainly a valid point, and we'll we can take a look at that ourselves later on. Is there any other public comment, Jennifer, that anyone waiting to talk about this, or?
We did not that I know of. Sandy or Jolene, they
Okay.
checked the email and I believe we are good to go.
Okay. So we can, so now I'd entertain a motion to close the hearing. Someone would like to close it at this moment? Dina?
I move to close the hearing.
Okay, moved by Chandy,
Second,
by DeVivo. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Katie, you in favor? Yeah, okay. So, the public hearing is closed. And the next order of business is to take up the issue of accessory dwelling units and parking opt-out under old business. So we can continue our discussion about that if you wish. Would anyone else like to comment about? If we do want to opt out, we need to have a unanimous, we need to have all 6 people. So if there's someone who's thinking of voting against it, let us know why.
Jennifer, I think we got a email today, and I can't think of her name right now.
Sheila Amder.
Yes, and she was
Yes, that's-
talking, yeah, she's talking about, she's asking whether we'll opt out or not. And I know it deals with affordable housing.
Yes.
And how would this address affordable housing?
So I think that one of the reasons this legislation is, my understanding is that it was at least encouraged by Desegregate Connecticut to make housing more affordable, because the idea of an accessory dwelling unit would be to allow people to age in place or allow you to obtain some rental income from your property, or to allow your adult children to live there. There's a number of ways that that ADUs can promote affordability. But Sheila agrees that, I think she agrees that, I can read her email into the record. It is part of your packet if you would like, but I think her concern is that we need to address affordability. And she does state that she understands, I can just read sort of the sections that she agrees that we've shown leadership in the past few years, requiring developers to provide a certain percentage of their rental units as affordable housing, as well as to contribute funds towards affordable housing. So she's excited about that base that we have. And then she talks about affordable housing. She said she talks about the market in Mansfield. She says, I can therefore understand why the P&Z would be concerned that we only allow ADUs with owner occupancy. This potentially allows extended families to live together, but in separate units, for people to afford to age in place, and for families who face financial issues to continue to afford to maintain and keep their homes. However, we have to be very clear what message we are sending to our town, our region, and our state. If we opt out of Public Act 2129, if we opt out. I realize you are facing a deadline of December 31st to make this decision. I would ask that you frame your decision in the context of seeking ways to expand affordable housing. That is your intent to further examine, that it is your intent to further examine zoning regulations to determine how the process of developing accessory, duplex, and triplex units can be simplified, as well as to potentially expand the required units or fees for developers that developers must meet for larger apartment complexes. We must continue to be a leader and promote housing choice and economic diversity in housing, and remove impediments in our regulations that make this more difficult. So I think she kind of understands why the Planning and Zoning Commission is opting out. But yes, so I'll let you read that and interpret that as you will.
Okay.
I think what she's saying is that we've been a leader and we should continue being a leader. And I think we all want to do that. Bino?
Yeah, so the three options that were presented were, one was opt out, and opt out and don't change anything. I think the second was opt out and change the parking standards. I'm wondering if when we create the motion, we should do it like opt out and take a look again and, revise as pertinent. Why are we already just saying we are only thinking about the parking? Then we can, take into account if our regulations are not supporting affordable housing. What are the, some of the good things from 21 other good things that we can adopt from 21-29.
I think that's a good point. We should opt out and review to see, because they've given us some ideas to think about.
And these are the potential actions for the parking that Jillian had put forth.
I agree with Benu, because I think if we do have in our current plan, we have a way that someone could have an auxiliary dwelling unit, and then for 5 years they can rent it, and they can give it to a family member to live in there. And if the person passes away, if it's an older family, maybe you put your grandparents in there and they die, there should be an ability that somebody could say, I've had this, it's empty. Maybe we rent it to another older couple in town, which would address the need of that other. Well, he was much younger, our first letter, but it gives them the option to say, look, we built this for mom and dad. Mom and dad lived here for a year or 2 years and they passed. It gives them, or if it was a new married couple, it gives them the opportunity to, well, they bought a new home, so we just happen to have this, so we could rent it. People building those are going to have the capacity to probably afford it. It's going to be, it's not everyone's going to jump in the market and put in a dwelling unit for your family members.
And Mansfield is a little different than other communities because we have the student rental problem. So if you have a house with an auxiliary apartment and they're both student apartments, that may create a problem that you wouldn't see in some other towns. So that's one of the reasons why we're more sensitive to that issue.
And we do have some of those. We have some houses that were built prior to zoning that have accessory dwelling units that do not have owner occupancy restrictions. So we have some in town. We just don't have any since we put that restriction on there.
Any other discussion? Okay, so do you have a potential motion for us, Jennifer, to consider?
Yes. I share my screen. Are you seeing the suggested motion opt out?
I can put that up. Paul?
Okay, okay.
I, John DeVivo, move to effective November 2nd, 2022, to opt out of the accessory dwelling unit and parking requirements detailed in PA 21-29. In taking this action, the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the requirements for accessory dwelling units and parking put forth in PA 21-29 and considered all public testimony and comments received during the public hearing. Further, the commission will be reviewing the town's zoning regulations related to accessory dwelling units and parking, and as deemed prudent, will adjust the regulations to reflect the goals of the Mansfield Tomorrow Plan of Conservation, which supports affordable housing and sustainability.
Moved by DeVivo,
Second.
second by Chandy. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, could we do like a poll vote just
Yeah.
so that we're very clear
Yes, yes.
on the 2/3?
Okay, all right. Okay, so we'll go in alphabetical order. Should I do the poll or you want to do the poll? How do we do polls?
No, I just mean call their name and have them answer like one by one instead of the hands.
Okay, Chandy,
Chandy, I.
okay, DeVivo,
Yes.
Bertoni,
For Tony, yes.
Wutch,
Which, yes.
Manville.
You're muted.
Reading your lips, it looked like yes.
Manville, yes.
Aho, yes. Okay, so we have the required 2/3 to pass.
Could I ask a question on
Yes.
if it, so after now, it's gonna go to the town council.
Right,
If they say no, will it come back to us? Or we don't know, the law doesn't really,
I think if they say no, that's it.
I think we
It has to
have,
be both.
we
Both
can't
have
opt
to
out.
agree. And,
okay.
and both have to be 2/3. The states giving a high bar to that.
Yep.
In their wisdom. Okay, so we have new business, Kirby Mill interpretation of special permit. So is that something we can decide tonight, or is that something that?
well,
Oh,
this is up to
that's the
you.
one that we could decide.
Yeah, I
tonight?
have you have two options before
Okay.
you. So,
What-
this
I
is
want you
not
to
a pu-
explain this to us, yeah.
yeah, so it's not a public hearing, but we do have folks, the applicant, as well as the possible tenants available for question, but I'll just kind of give an introduction. You all know Kirby Mill very well. You've discussed it quite a bit. So just a little bit of the history. In 1996, the PZC approved a special permit to authorize manufacturing uses, production and assembly of mechanical products, including associated design and office functions, as described in the applicant's statement of use. Then in 2006, the PZC approved a special permit to authorize a hydroelectric power facility. In 2007, the owners of the Kirby Mill requested an office use for the complete top floor of the mill, which included 7,500 square feet, and this was for a consulting and marketing firm. The firm employed 15 to 20 professionals, including artists. The zoning agent reviewed the request with staff and determined that the proposed tenant for Kirby Mill was Mission Control LLC, and it did comply with the PZC special permit approval for the site. So he presented this at a regular meeting on August 6, 2007, and the commission unanimously agreed that this was an acceptable use, and we've attached those minutes for your viewing. In 2017, the owners received some staff approval for 15 art studios used by UConn. Then on December 7th, 2020, more recently, PZC granted a modification of the existing special permit to authorize the manufacture and wholesale of wine. And then most recently, on June 6th, 2022, the PZC granted a modification of the special permit for a tasting room. The approval was conditioned upon limited days and hours of operation. So today, the applicants, or just recently, the applicants, they're asking for confirmation from the PZC that use of the space for music lessons and to provide music and arts enrichment to small groups of homeschool children is consistent with the existing special permit approvals. So they've, in their statement of use, they've outlined hours of operations, which would include generally 10 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. on weekdays and occasional use on weekends for rehearsal and recording space. There would be occasional performance nights until about 10 p.m. for students promoted as sort of an open mic. They would have vocal group meetings and student-based patron gatherings. So the proposed use does not require any modifications to the interior or exterior of the site. And the applicant has estimated that there will be no more than an additional 5 to 6 persons on the site for limited times. The applicant has indicated that in prior submissions that there are 76 designated parking spaces for Kirby Mill. Current uses, including the tasting room, can utilize up to 63 spaces. If this commission requires a modification of the special permit or a new special permit and analysis of that parking and traffic can be required. As lessons are located indoors, there's no anticipated noise impacts. Amplified music is currently not permitted in association with previously approved uses, and a change to the regulations would be required to authorize the issuance of zoning permits for live and amplified music. So you have two choices here. Tonight, you can determine that this proposed use, as written up by the applicant and described in our staff memo, is consistent with previously approved uses, and no further action is necessary, and we'll just put a letter to that effect in the file. Or pursuant to Article 5, Section B.9, the commission has the discretion to determine whether the proposed modification is significant enough to warrant the submission of a modification of an existing special permit or a new special permit. So you sort of have two choices here tonight.
Okay. So any discussion on this? Sure.
Can I speak?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, if I, everything Jennifer just laid out is accurate, but I would just like to explain that the building has a certain amount of office space in it. And the office, the way it was handled in the past, as far as we're concerned, we believe that this is a similar situation. The original office space was constructed when we restored the building back in 1997. And then we added some additional office space in 2007. That was the top floor that was discussed. So ultimately there's office space on the top floor and there's office space on the main floor. The office space on the main floor is what we're talking about here. It's vacant space, been vacant for quite a while now. When we came back to the town with the potential use for art studios on the top floor, the town determined that that was consistent with the use that had been prior approved for the top floor. There were artists up there before, there's going to be artists again, and there are offices that are being used for art, but there are still just offices, no physical changes. The other office space in the building that's the subject of this discussion is the same situation. It's offices that were used for our businesses historically and are vacant, as we said. And the people that are interested in coming in are also on this call. And so if you'd like to have them describe what they do, I think that would be helpful. But before they do, it's the same kind of use. They're going to use the same offices. They give basically piano lessons and guitar lessons and voice lessons to young folks. And we actually think it's a absolutely fantastic use for the building. It fits very well with the direction that we see the building going. We don't see the building moving toward manufacturing, which is what it was originally approved for, because that doesn't exist. You've all heard me say that before. We are struggling to find tenants, and this happens to be something that we think is a great fit, and we see it as essentially no different than what happens on the top floor. I actually, in a letter I wrote, I actually tried to make a little bit of comparison, and I'd like to, I could just read that one paragraph to you. The art studios using office space are upstairs, and this group is going to use using office spaces for music studios as opposed to art studios. The operating hours, the art studio upstairs currently is 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, come and go. It's students. And this particular group is similar, is less than 24/7. They have actual limited operating hours and they're very reasonable. And again, this is young people, so this is not late night anything. The art studios hold open to public studio nights, the current existing use. They hold open to the public. They have large events where they have the public come in and do open studios. And they have group speakers, they do outdoor picnics. They do group sessions on the front lawn where they have instructors come in and instruct on the front lawn. This has all been happening now for, by the way, Michelle is here with me.
Yeah, I'm here.
And for how long, Michelle?
They've been doing it for 4 years now.
For 4 years. So this is what's been going on there. And we see this new use as being quite a bit less impactful even than that. So this group will be similar in that they'll have some inside activities, but they're not looking at doing the outdoor activities like the art people are on the upstairs. So if it's okay with you, could we have the potential tenant explain their business? I think it'd be interesting what they do. Is that okay? All right. So Derek, are you there?
Yes, we are here. Can you hear us?
Yes.
All right, awesome. First of all, thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to us and to talk about this a bit. My name is Derek. This is Teresa. We are partners in both life and in business. And yes, the studio, I think it's been described really well here. We do lessons for all ages. The primary source actually of our students has come from Oak Grove Montessori, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. I have been the music teacher there for 14 years. I have also been the organist and choir director at the First Congregational Church in Lebanon. And that is also another source of where we get our lessons. I bring this up because we actually don't do any advertising or any paid advertising. So a lot of our student base comes from these avenues that we teach at. So we offer lessons to all ages, and it's very geared in a Montessori way where the lessons are geared towards the individual student. We work a lot with songs. We teach a lot of theory and a lot of the music reading and basics through music through song, because a lot of times lots of endless exercises can lose lots of students. So we do a lot of learning the music theory and getting confident with performing through the learning of songs and music that the kids want to be able to learn. We give them a song, they give us a song, and that's kind of how this works. So we've been doing it I've been teaching these private lessons for 14 years now, and 8 years with the current space that we're in. Funny enough, Marcus Palumbo, who you read a public comment from for that Act 2129, that was a student of mine for 14 years. I couldn't believe it. It was uncanny to see him come up on the screen, not related to us. So that's the kind of business that we run, and we're very open to working with all ages and abilities, and everybody can do music. So I've always made it my mission to bring music to anyone who is interested, which is plenty of people. So that's
Very
a brief
good.
description.
Thank you for the explanation.
Yeah.
It seems to me that our best action is no action. Let Jennifer tell them to go ahead. Yeah, Craig.
The only, I think it's a wonderful idea, and thanks for the presentation, Derek, Terrace, and Sam. The only thing that concerns me is, why did you feel the need to mention open mic night when this is a non-amplified music venue?
Yes. No.
If could I, let me start with that, Derek? And then
Absolutely. Go for it.
if I don't have it right. So that's part of what they do, and Derek will explain what that really entails. What I didn't want to do is not mention that, because you all know what we just went through with the winery permits. And so I didn't want it to come across like we were trying to hide anything from the commission. I wanted to make sure everything was out there. So I specifically made sure that whenever Derek wrote what his company did, or we, in our conversations with the town, that we mentioned that each and every time. That's the reason. I just wanted to make sure that was out there. So Derek, could you explain what that really is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, when I started at Oak Grove Montessori, this was something I started there as their regular teacher. I used to call it Music Share, where every couple of months or so, anything that we were working on, or anything a kid liked from home, or anything that they were interested in music-wise, we had an opportunity to share for each other. And that experience, I really learned, gave kids a lot of confidence in terms of being able to share or perform in front of each other. It helps so much with nerves. It helps so much in so many ways, that when we opened the studio here, that was very much something I wanted to be able to offer. And like I said, we are very song based in the way that we teach. So being able to share a lot of that music is important. Now, I understand the amplification and all of those ideas. Now, we have in the past here used mics, but in the space that we're looking at, the acoustics in the room are kind of beautiful. So I don't know if we're going to even need it. So and don't forget, these are kids, and they're playing. It is all ages. We do have adults, and their grandparents even have gotten up on the stage and performed. So it's a very family oriented ordeal. But like I said, we have used microphones in the past, but I don't know if we're even going to need to with the beautiful acoustics in there. We have acoustic pianos as well. So the amplification on our end, we're not having bands or anything like that. So in fact, the last band that we did have was hammer, dulcimer, violin, and a person on acoustic guitar. So if we have a band, it might be something like that, but not amplified.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Now, Whatever happened to the wine tasting? I was looking forward to being able to taste wine down there.
We are still working on permits. We're working through the safety issues now. So we're working on getting the well converted into a public water source, a public water supply, and we're working with architects on getting approvals from the building departments. But it's still in the plans. I will say that we're on a little bit of shaky ground with it because it is restricted. And I think I made it very clear initially that Michelle and I, it's not like a lifelong dream that we started a winery. It was to utilize and help save the building. And so, I'm being very upfront and very honest with you. If someone walked in today and said that they would like to rent the space where the winery is located, we would shut the winery down and rent them the space. It's really that tentative. So we're still working toward it. And we still intend to move forward with it. We really want to, Derek and Teresa were interested in some of the other cultural things that are going on in the Kirby Mill. As you know, part of the winery plan is to build a museum, a Kirby Mill museum. And Michelle and I still very much want to do that. So we're hoping we can move that forward. But in any case, we're still permitting for building permits now. So at least we're at that point.
Okay, well, let's get back to the.
Yeah, it's a change in use, so. Yeah.
Any other discussion from commission members? Okay, I would, Jennifer, if we decide to do nothing, we don't need a motion to do nothing.
I think you do need to take a,
A straw vote.
you need to, you need to take you need to make a motion that you
Okay,
need to
all right.
rule that, yeah.
Okay. Chandy, would you like to put that forward?
Yeah, I'd like to put the first motion.
Okay,
So Chandy, effective November 2nd, 2022. There's some word missing, I think.
Wait.
The use described in a letter dated October 30th, 2022 from Sam and Michelle Schiffman, applicants for the Kirby Mill located at 114 Mansfield Hollow Road, is consistent with uses previously approved by special permit for the property, file number P-1118. Should the applicant deviate or expand from the use presented this evening, the applicant will be required to come back to the commission for approval.
okay, moved by Chandy. Second by Tony.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. We're looking forward to singing and dancing and wine.
Yes, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it, folks. Good night.
Good night. Okay, so now we get to Mansfield Apartments. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, but we really don't have a lot of power in this situation. We're kind of an advisory group.
So correct. You provide advisory comments, but as you all know, this is Yukon property and the town does not have the jurisdiction to regulate Yukon. So, but when they do a large project, they always do an environmental impact evaluation. And prior to that, they usually do a scoping notice. And you did provide very lengthy comments to that scoping, as part of that scoping notice process. There are a few changes. They did have a slightly more advanced traffic study, and Derek Delay and the Traffic Authority made comments on that, and those are included in my memo. So I just want to pull up my memo, if you can just bear with me for 1 minute.
We've lost Katie.
Oh, did we lose Katie?
No,
Oh, she. So,
okay.
and it's important to remember also, as I learn also how to interpret these EIEs, they're high level analyses. So it's hard sometimes because you don't get a site, a detailed site plan like we're used to looking at. So it's hard to know what, what's going to happen. So that's why some of the questions are like, we need more, or some of the comments are that I suggest are, we need more information. The traffic comments, one of the things that I highlighted is that the town comments, they are going to have to go to the Office of State Traffic Administration, OSTA, and the comments from the town really should be provided directly to OSTA, in my opinion. And so I would suggest that you would include that in the letter. I can share the map of the parcel and just kind of give you a little bit of an overview, as much as I know. And just another important component or piece of information is that there will be a public hearing. UConn's going to be holding a public hearing on this on November 7th. So as you know, the Mansfield Apartments are across the street from the Mansfield Town Hall. They're proposing to redevelop this area that's in this ring road. However, and they are proposing to move the driveway to the west so that it aligns with the entryway to the town hall. They are going to be excluding this out parcel A, and in the EIE, I found that a little confusing. They said that out parcel E. They say that it's going to be ceded to the town, but it is my understanding that they are going to be working with it will be sold to a private entity, and so therefore it would be there's a potential that it could be developed in the future. In which case it would have to go through all of the local land use approvals. So let's see here. I've got this. Can you see this map with the so basically the apartments will be in three buildings, and they did not include the number of stories in the EIE. However, through public documents that have gone out through UConn today, and actually staff received a presentation, the buildings are expected to be they could be up to 7 stories tall, but that's, again, we don't have that information. They are going to have 373 parking spaces, and this is on the western edge. There'll be a elevated parking structure, and that is where most of the cars will be parked, but there is some other parking along this ring road. Some of the concerns aside from traffic and the concerns detailed by the traffic authority are the buffer to the Moss Sanctuary, because as you know, the Moss Sanctuary is used by a lot of people, UConn students, E.O. Smith. It's really, we call it sort of our downtown woods, and it's sort of a kind of a respite and a beautiful sanctuary that people enjoy from all over this region, actually. So some of the comments related to maintaining a buffer so that you're not immediately walking out and seeing some of the utilities and these high story, these tall buildings. So there's also concern about just ensuring that their utilities, their dumpsters, things like that along the ring road are buffered and screened. There was a little concern but that again will be under local control as to what is going to happen with this out parcel E in the future. These streams right over here, they're seeps, and so they just the Conservation Commission had noted those and wanted to make sure that they were adequately protected. There is a vernal pool down here right off the site within the Moss Sanctuary. So as part of the scoping process, they had not field delineated the wetlands, but they have here. Let's see, I can kind of go through some of my comments. So stormwater, the Conservation Commission wanted to make sure that they use the most current rainfall data as they were doing their stormwater modeling. And then they wanted to make sure that the stormwater systems were properly maintained. So aesthetic resources folks have mentioned that the subject property is located right at our southern gateway to stores downtown. And when we built when Price Chopper was built, my understanding is that the commission felt strongly that the building should be lower in scale because that was at the southern end of stores downtown. Just there are no historic, archaeological, or cultural or recreational resources that they've identified on this existing site. However, there are on the adjacent Moss Sanctuary, and there will be increased recreational pressure. I sent out an email earlier today regarding noise. Derek brought this to my attention. It is unclear if the fuel cells that they're going to be using will cause noise. So it just, he felt it was important to put that on the record because if depending on what that looks like, it could be a direct impact.
Jennifer, I did a quick Google search of that, and those fuel cells are silent. Like
They are silent. Okay, so I'll let Derek wanted to include that, and maybe just we could. You're not saying really anything about that.
Any unnecessary noise we don't want.
Right. So one of I guess the thing that caught my attention, and it did during the scoping process as well, is the inconsistency with the town's plan of conservation and development. And the EIE, they have responded to, you pointed that out in your scoping comments. The EIE has a response to that, and it states that, the town does not have jurisdiction over Yukon. And then they stated in that EIE that the town had correctly identified the use on our zoning map as institutional. But you all know that our plan of conservation and development and our zoning map are two different things. So in the plan of conservation and development, in the on the future land use map, this area was intended to serve as a transition from the heart of downtown stores to adjacent rural neighborhoods. And so it does appear that the scale, if it is going to be 7 stories, which we don't have any indication of the height, would be inconsistent with the town plan of conservation and development. As you know, and I think I may have mentioned earlier, the Moss Sanctuary has a conservation easement on it that is held by the Connecticut Forest and Parks Association, and the town we have to uphold the terms of that easement. So we just wanted to raise that concern to the university so that the adjacent intensification of this use does not impact that conservation easement. The Parks and Natural Resources Committee and Conservation Commission recommended that Yukon do a inventory of the current conditions so that there would be a baseline, so that if there were impact, we would understand what they were, and then the cost could be covered, hopefully by Yukon, I think is what they were indicating. They talked about creating a carefully designed entrance to the Moss Sanctuary, because as you most likely know, you enter the Moss Sanctuary from 275, and then you take the stairs down through Mansfield Apartments, and then you get to the gate or the gateway or the trailhead of Moss Sanctuary. So they felt that was important to bring to folks' attention. Also, there has to be a balance that we do need to maintain vehicular access for public safety and park management activities. But we don't want unauthorized vehicles, including trail bikes. Part of the conservation restriction restricts trail bike owners from using the property. I believe they currently are, but they're not supposed to be, and we don't want to encourage more of that use. I think there's just general concern over the inappropriate use of the Moss Sanctuary as a result of having 3 times the people living there. Access during construction, that was a big one for the Parks and Natural Resources Committee, because it's unclear if we will have access via 275 during construction. And given the amount of people that use the sanctuary, the Parks and Natural Resources Committee felt it was important to try to find some way to get access, or at least maybe limit the time where we don't have access, to just limit that time frame. We are the Parks and Natural Resources Committee will be meeting with folks from Yukon to take a walk on the site to see if were able to come up with a solution to that. And then I already talked about out parcel E. So the way this works is generally you have drafted you review your comments. I have drafted a letter, and if you agree with these comments, you can authorize me to submit them to the town council, and provided there are no changes, significant changes, both Paul as the chair of the PZC and the mayor would sign that, and we would forward that to UConn, and we would include all the minutes and all of the other attachments that I've noted. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Good. So is there anything we'd like to add or subtract to that? Looks like I think you've done a good job.
Yeah, I was going to say, very comprehensive.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Craig.
I just have a question on fire suppression. Do we have the capability, or UConn has the ladders to go to 7-story?
That's something we could bring up. Actually, that's a very good point. I could add that to the letter. I would hope they would. They must. They have the stem.
Fire engine number 20 can go to that height. The latest one they bought after they built that.
The STEM building.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, because the highest building at
One-
UConn
they have
is
one
well
engine
over 7
that goes to
stories.
that height, yeah.
Okay.
Laurel, did you have something?
Yeah, I was reading a little bit, like, so the traffic, there's a traffic specific one. Sorry, I have all of these things open now. And there was one traffic specific one that didn't dive as much into the impacts on the surrounding roads, but then I'm looking, Jennifer, I think the one, I am looking at one now that does dive into the underscore draft. Is that what you would submit?
So in the letter, I say potential to impacts to local roads such as Eastwood, Westwood, and Separatist roads that may be used to access campus to avoid to avoid the Stores Road South Eagleville intersection, given the substantial increase in traffic. I need to make that a complete sentence, but that's where I address that, that they need to.
Maybe I'm
I'm
looking
making
at,
that a complete sentence before I sign it.
Yes, I'll make sure that has a complete sentence.
I mean, I'm looking at the one that was directed to John Robital, and it does go through the impacts to some of the surrounding roads. And I think that's just a really important thing to highlight for increased traffic on it. It talks about 195 a little bit, but it talks more about the impacts on 275 and Eastwood, Westwood, and some of the other entrances to campus. But I do think that 195 is already a significant problem, or this is especially when you have beds on one end and at 4 corners, and now you're going to put more beds here. So just that might need to be addressed.
So and in the letter to Mr. Robital, which is really cut and pasted from the memo that I submitted, or should have been, it says additional mitigation should be considered, including relocating the egress from the proposed complex to the exit of the town hall community center, adding parking for residents parking in proximity to the complex is not convenient and will place additional pressure on the municipal lot. Implementing landscape features to encourage pedestrians and non-vehicular users to the signalized crossing of Route 195 and 275 for the exclusive pedestrian use. And then there's an incomplete sentence that I will fix: potential impacts to local roads such as Eastwood, Westwood, and Separatist roads that may be used to access campus to avoid Stores Road, South Eagleville Road intersection.
I think one good thing about it is that if you're living there, you're not going to get in your car to drive to campus because there's no place on campus to park. So you're gonna walk or take a bus. Whereas if you're living in a house,
Maybe
5 miles
And
away,
it's very expensive. Parking is very expensive.
yeah, so they're gonna walk or take a bus from there. And if someone is living 5 miles away in a rental house, then they do take their car up 195.
Well,
So-
I live less than 1 mile away and my neighbors are college students and they drive.
So
So
where do they park?
I have no idea, but they, the traffic impact on our street is significant. And you'd think the kids would be taking alternative transportation or walking, especially on a day like today. But that neither here nor there. I know the transportation committee has also discussed the impact of this on the project deemed for South Eagleville Road with, pedestrian, to improve pedestrian safety and like refuge islands and creating kind of more of a boulevard style like you kind of see near Price Chopper. But one thing we discussed is, the construction impact on that project and if UConn would, help foot the bill for the changes to 275. Because I also think there's an important aspect for if you're going to increase, pedestrian traffic from that area and, they could be going down 195, but if they're going eastward, westward route and even further down when they complete the path eventually, lighting is a big concern from where the Mansfield apartments are now further west on that road. It's pretty dark. So
I hope 275 gets improved. I know when I tried, the other day when I tried walking across 275, I had a car beep horn at me because I was walking across the road.
in the crosswalk,
Yes, I should not have been doing that according to him. So yeah, that whole, hopefully that whole stretch will be improved.
but I don't know if we have any. Oh, sorry, back to Jennifer's original comment. I don't know how much power we have to force UConn to help to improve that road from a monetary standpoint and or how the construction will impact traffic. That's even the construction alone is gonna put more on 195.
We can make comments.
Right.
Okay, so are these comments okay? Do we need to vote on that?
Yeah, I have a motion for you.
All right.
Bear with me. So can you see it?
We can see it.
I can put that forward.
Okay, thank you.
I would authorize the PZC chair to submit recommended comments on the proposed redevelopment of the Mansfield Apartments to the town council based on the recommendations contained in the memo from Jennifer Kaufman dated November 1st, 2022. If the town council agrees with the recommendations, the chair is authorized to co-sign a letter to the University of Connecticut submitting the formal comments, including any additional comments identified by the town council, provided such comments are not contradictory to the commission's recommendations.
Moved by Woods. Second by Tony. Any discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It passes unanimous. Leave. Thank you very much. Okay, we got one more thing. We got to appoint those zoning agents to the PZC as well, right?
Correct.
Okay, we've already done it once, so why don't you throw up that motion? We'll get her done and we can go.
I can put that forward.
Okay, thank you.
I, Chandy, move to appoint Michael D'Amato and Robin Newton as Mansfield zoning agents pursuant to Article 11, Section A of the Mansfield zoning regulations, effective November 3rd, 2022.
Second,
Moved by Chandy, second by DeVivo. All in favor? Unanimous. Very good. I think that, anything else we need to do tonight, Jennifer?
Just that, so you have 3 more meetings left this year. Just November 21st, December 5th, and I think it's December 17th. I think you're going to be having public hearings on all of those evenings. So if you guys can just really let us know if you're able to attend, that would be really helpful just for the applicants. I really want to thank you also for tonight for coming out on a Wednesday. I know it wasn't usually don't work for PZC on Wednesdays, so I appreciate it.
Okay, great. Well, we got everything done we needed to get done tonight, and
Yeah.
we'll get now on the last meeting of the year. I'm going to be in Los Angeles, but I will call in. I will attempt to connect.
Okay, great. All right.
Okay.
Thank you all.
See ya. Good night.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Adjourned at 7:21.